I'm great. How are you?
Good. Following up on Bill, you started to say, but went on another point, that this has been solved. I want to be clear. Are you saying because of the Fisher House saying that they'll pay? The reason why I ask is the Senate about an hour ago passed by unanimous consent legislation that appears to mirror what the House already passed. And so my question really is, will the President sign that into law, or does the White House believe that the Fisher House saying this solves
Again,
it?
the Fisher House is contracting with the Department of Defense. Through that contract, the Department of Defense obligates itself to reimburse the Fisher House upon the reopening of the government. So it's not just the Fisher House taking on the sole responsibility in perpetuity for making these payments.
You don't need legislation?
It does mean that we don't need legislation. And again, we go from day to day, and we discover new terrible consequences of shutdown. And when they get attention, lawmakers rush to propose a fix when there is an obvious available fix to avoid all of these negative consequences. Open the government. The only harm you're doing is to the American people and to your party by continuing to shut it down. Just open the government.
So will the President veto that legislation? Or?
Again, I don't think, first of all, the legislation is not necessary. Our view has been that this piecemeal funding is, again, a gimmick. It's an attempt. I mean, why is it that, think about the amount of expended energy here to try to piecemeal solve their specific political problems every day when a bad consequence is revealed because of their decision to shut down the government. They could save themselves a lot of trouble and the American people a lot of harm if they would simply open the government.
To follow up then, yesterday you took the question about when the President learned about the military death benefits not being paid. A moment ago you said, everyone should have known because the Pentagon warned everyone, I believe, on September 27th. When did that filter to the President?
What I can tell you is that in his evening walk with Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough on Tuesday, the President raised the concern about death benefits not being paid to deserving families. And Mr. McDonough explained that the Office of Management and Budget and the Department of Defense were trying to find a solution, and that the Pay Our Military Act did not appear to fix it. The President directed Mr. McDonough to get creative and get it solved within 24 hours. The Department of Defense had been approached by the Fisher House Foundation, which had generously offered to make charitable donations to these families from its own funds. The Department of Defense, in consultation with the Office of Management and Budget, developed a solution overnight. They determined that DoD could enter into a rush agreement with the Fisher House that would essentially make the organization a government contractor that could deliver benefits and enable DoD to reimburse the costs it had incurred after the shutdown ends. Again, shutdown never should have happened. It was a choice made by Republicans, a choice that, for those who paid attention, included an awareness of the fact that among the many consequences potentially would be this one. When the Pay Our Military Act, which was a bill supported by both parties and signed by the President to address some of the unfair consequences to our military families and those who support them, was passed, and it was viewed by some, at least, that it did not solve this specific problem. The President said, get creative and solve it in 24 hours, and they solved it in less than that.
Thank you for answering that question.